Hello, I am under the weather. It's Conor, and it's the MMQB podcast. There's Albert Breer. I like to get that out of the way first because some people have an aversion to. It's like when you sit next to a guy on an airplane that has the sniffles, and you want to open the emergency hatch and jump out of the plane. If you're triggered by that sort of thing, I don't think I'm going to be sniffling over the course of this show, but I am going to sound like I sat outside in sub-zero temperatures for a week. I got the first school cold of the year. It's here, and my 37-year-old immune system is not prepared to handle it.
Yeah. So like this is your Jordan flu game, I guess, and I hope you didn't have any bad pizza last night. uh I actually think you're right in the thick of that because I feel like I'm out of the woods now. Like, cause when you're a kid, you build up the most amazing immune system because you're doing so many disgusting things.
Yes.
And then you get older and I think it gets knocked down a little bit. And then you have kids. And then when they're really young, you're like thrown back into that petri dish. And I think now with my oldest being 10, I'll be 11 in less than a month. And having 3 kids been through it, I feel like my immune system is back at the level of like where it was in like 1990 or something. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like,
so when you were like 40.
Yeah. So I'll leave that. I'm not going to respond to that. I feel like I'm back at the point where I can withstand some more things. Although, Emily had a debilitating sinus infection over the last couple of weeks. So maybe my immune system is just stronger than hers. I'm sure she'll be happy to hear that when she doesn't listen to our podcast. So
it would be great if this is the one time that she just decides to check in. And
now she thinks that like I've been taking shots at her for like years on the podcast.
That happened to me once where I think I had like a friend or like an in-law relative who did listen to the show bring up something that I said about my wife on the show. And then she was like, is this your whole thing? You just go down in the basement and talk about me for an hour? Yeah. I was like, no, only kind of sometimes.
Yeah.
But we got a lot. Actually, this is going to be a newsier program. I would say that in totality, this is not your must-see TV slate of weekend games. And this is not the fault of the NFL. I mean, sometimes you just reach that point where with injury attrition, with the fact that the teams that you thought might be good aren't that good. And we'll get to it, but I just don't think that this is your blockbuster slate. I actually thought this past weekend was really good, even though the closeness of the games didn't necessarily come into fold as much, but a lot of news. And first off the bat is that Dillon Gabriel is starting for the Browns this weekend in the UK against the Vikings. Interesting time, interesting coordinator to make your first NFL head start against. Good luck.
Yep.
Especially with Harrison Smith back and all that. But Shadur Sanders remains the number 3 quarterback on the depth chart. So Joe Flacco is your backup. And I'm wondering why now, because, I kind of figured it would happen. And I love Mary Kay Cabot, who has covered the Browns for the Plain Dealer.
Who heavily hinted that it was going to happen last night.
Like 90 years. Yeah. And she had written something like, it's time to go to Dillon Gabriel. And just kind of a peek behind the curtain, when a beat writer of that stature writes something like that, it means that the team is probably going to make a move to Dillon Gabriel, right? It's not, she's just not out there, taking blind hacks at the golf ball. And so as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay. Flacco, to me, and I went back and I watched the Lions game again. I feel like those picks were not necessarily his fault. Like, one was a clear miscommunication, and everybody only showed the fact that he was throwing it to nowhere.
That was like, in the other one, Jerry Jeudy fell down, right?
Yeah, DJ Reed made like an incredible play on the ball.
Yeah. So I mean, like I don't know that this is so much about. I don't know that this is so much about Joe Flacco as it is about maybe the front office wanting to get a better look at like what they have at quarterback going forward. And I think the challenge for the coaching staff now becomes, if Dillon Gabriel hasn't shown himself to be the best option in practice, do you risk losing the team by doing this? Because and I've been over this before, and I think we've talked about this before, like this is not playing Madden. There are other guys in that locker room whose careers are legitimately on the line this year. I mean, that's most of your roster every year. And so if you've given them a demonstrably worse answer at the most important position on the field, you could be affecting their ability to continue their career past this year. And so like, that's what I mean when I say you have to be able to sell it to the locker room. Now there comes a point in the year, right? I mean, when you're, 13, 14 games in and the team's out of the playoff race, everybody's an adult, you know what I mean? Like you realize at that point, like, and I think any player would realize at that point, okay, like I understand when the organization wants to get a look at these guys. I just know this, like Joe Flacco was very clearly the best quarterback in camp for them, very clearly the best quarterback in camp for them. So if Dillon Gabriel goes out and it does not look good on Sunday, I just think you're inviting so many different things into the conversation. And that's the problem. You know what I mean? Like you're inviting the Shedeur Sanders circus into the equation.
Yes.
You're inviting the like into the internal conversation. Like, why do we go away from Joe in the first place? What is this season all about?
Right.
It's just, I mean, to me at least, it's a risky move, and I think it's different than the Giants move to Jackson Dart because I think the players saw in the summer Jackson Dart's probably going to be the best answer sooner rather than later for us on the field,
Right.
And Jackson Dart won the backup job. Now Dillon Gabriel did too, but Dillon Gabriel didn't have Jameis Winston to beat out. You know what I mean? And Jackson Dart did beat Jameis Winston out. So I look at this and I do think there's some risk involved. And that's, by the way, is with all due respect to the job the Browns have done, which this is clearly a reset year for them. And I do think if you look at like what they've done from a roster standpoint, a lot of this plan is working out. That rookie class, quarterbacks aside,
rookie class is great.
Looks awesome. Yeah. I mean, Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger, Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins coming back now and how good he's looked since he's gotten back in the lineup. I think they're doing a lot of things right. I would hope you wouldn't undermine the rest of your year if the players don't believe that you're doing the right thing for them in the here and the now. And again, like doing the right thing for the franchise long-term, you have to get a read on what you have at quarterback going forward. And that's going to affect your 2026 plan. But there are a lot of guys in that locker room who could care less about your 2026 plan because there's no guarantee they're going to be there when you're executing it.
So you're 1-3 and nearly beat the Bengals with Joe Burrow in week 1. Mm-hmm. So this is a 1-3 team that should possibly be, should probably be a 2-3 team, right?
Yeah.
And you have Carson Wentz on Sunday in the UK, which is a total, you have no idea what's going to happen in that game. A game that you can win. You have the Steelers the week after, and yes, Pittsburgh is theoretically right now the best team in the division, but by virtue of the fact that the Ravens have an entire starting offense and defense on the IR at this point or in the training room. And then you have the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets. Like through November 9th, all of those games are winnable. And I just don't understand why now. And maybe the plan is, like you said, that there is a reset involved, that there's some version of this that involves taking your lumps this year. But the kids already showed that they could play. Give them the best quarterback option available and let them play, right? I don't know. Let them go beat the Vikings. Let them go beat the Steelers. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. They went down and they stopped the Lions on the first drive on Sunday on their scripted drive. Then had an 88-yard counter with a Quinshon Judkins touchdown. And yes, then a lot of stuff got out of control in that game. But this is after beating the Green Bay Packers. I think this team's frisky enough that you keep Flacco in and you let him bang around a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess the good news is Joe is such a pro and has such a I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. Maybe that's not the right way to put it. Like just kind of like a mature attitude about all this stuff that like it's not one of those like where oh, we can't go back to him. You know what I mean? Like, I think they can go
True.
back to him if they need to. So I think Joe is like the perfect guy for this scenario where if you do have to go back to him, you can. But it's just like, I don't think this team is dead. I think the team is like, I mean, just by record and by the juncture of the year we're at right now, like they're still in contention. This isn't like they've fallen out of the race completely. Again, like it's one of those things where it's like, how's the locker room going to take this? And if Dillon looks like he's in over his head against Brian Flores' defense, how hard is it to go back to him again? There's a lot to consider there. And I think a lot of it like can affect the development of that rookie class too. Like you want to have as healthy an environment as you can over the last 3 months of the season. And you want to give those guys a chance to play at their very best over the rest of the year. So now, okay, like all of a sudden, like you look like you've got like a really nice young group of players going into 2026 and they've got some momentum. And I don't know, like I think looking at this dispassionately and looking at this like it's like you're moving pieces around on a chessboard. I don't know. I think there's risk involved in that.
Let's play the Mike and the Mad Dog. And for those of you who don't know, they were legendary radio hosts in the Northeast, and they would get the Giants schedule and the Jets schedule on the day that it was released, and they would sit there and go, "That's a win, that's a loss, win, loss." Okay, but just pacify me for one more second on this. Okay, let's say you lose to the Browns or you lose to the Vikings in the UK because the Vikings are a better team. Okay,
yep.
That makes you 1-4, and you lose to the Steelers, and that makes you 1-5. You beat the Dolphins on October 19th. You beat the Patriots on October 26th. I don't think either of those, none of those games are out of the realm of possibility. And
okay, so
they're more in the realm of
your next 4.
Okay. And then you have the Jets, who may be one of the worst teams in the NFL right now.
Now you'd be 4-5.
Now you're 4-5 going into a game against Baltimore. And who the hell knows what the Ravens look like in November? They could be a lot better, or all these players could just be hurt. Like this could be this sucks. Everybody's on IR season, and that happens to teams, right?
Right.
So I don't know. That's my thought process there. I don't.
Yeah, the other piece of my thought process is that the quarterback of the 2026 Browns is probably not on the roster right now. Right?
I think it's Sellers. What do you think?
I don't know who it is, but I don't think that player's on the roster right now. That'd be my guess.
I got an interesting text on this the other day, by the way. And I'll just whatever. We can put a bow on the Browns quarterback conversation with this. That I think that a lot of people like Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. He's starting to climb up the boards and
the proverbial board.
The proverbial board. And then this kid, Josh Hoover, who lit up Belichick in week 1 from TCU. A lot of people are starting to talk about him.
I'll give you one. Dante Moore at Oregon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, huge game against Penn State. That was like his coming out
Penn
party.
State. Yep. And if you watch that game, and I'm not a scout, but what I do know is this guy was like a high-end recruit who went to UCLA and played for Chip Kelly and started as a true freshman, then transferred out. I think there was some sort of NIL issue, whatever it was. It was before Chip left, I think. And, he went back and he sat for a year, which I think that it shows some maturity. Like he was actually Dillon Gabriel's backup at Oregon last year. And I, just watching him, knowing like, okay, like this guy has got like high-end tools. He was that sort of recruit that's showing up on the field now, and to perform in that environment, I still remember Dwayne Haskins, like his sort of coming out party was in a whiteout at Penn State. And I just think that those sorts of moments can get people paying attention. And so if Oregon winds up winning the national championship or making a run at it, Dante Moore is draft eligible. And if he's got these high-end tools, maybe he's somebody you look at as like, that's a real guy. So, I think there's lots of names. The weird thing about this year is there's lots of those names in the bucket, but I don't think any of them you could say, like, I don't know that there's a single quarterback out there where I would put $100 on he's 100% going to be a top 10 pick,
No, not
whether
right
it's
now.
Nussmeier or Sellers or whoever else. Like, I think these guys are all in this big Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller. Like, I think all these guys are sort of in this big bucket. And I don't think any of them are like, Caleb Williams or Drake May were 2 years ago at this time when we knew like those guys were going to be top 10 picks,
No, I don't think it's going to offer the high end of that year's quarterback class, the 2024 quarterback class, but I think it is going to offer it's going to be that pick your flavor, Penix, McCarthy, Bo Nix. I think it could be that version of it, right? Where it's like, if you need one, there might be a guy there that matches with you. And this is just a random aside, but going back up and getting Dart looks really smart right now. At least it does after one start.
I actually just answered. It was actually funny because I answered a mailbag question on that, and somebody asked, would if you redrafted right now, would Dart go higher? And somebody brought up Cleveland, and I said Cleveland probably still would go through the plan that they went through last year, which was to reset the roster because they went 3 years without a first round pick, and their core was getting a little older, which I think was smart by the Browns, right? But then I thought about it, I'm like, but maybe they would have taken him at 5, And I say that because if you had the knowledge of what 2026 looks like now, maybe you do take him. You know what I mean? Or the Saints take him at 9, because I think that's a huge part of it for these teams. It's something like most people don't look at. Like a lot of teams, when they need a quarterback, will go in and they won't just look at that year's quarterbacks. They'll look at the next year's quarterbacks, And so, having that kind of 2 year picture now, the Jackson Dart pick could wind up looking really smart.
Could. I mean, we're just in the early stages of that, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Next, let's stay. This is a very AFC North heavy news week, Albert.
Yep.
The Bengals. We just watched them get demolished on Monday Night Football offensively, and my upset is not specifically because I only needed 6 points from Jamar Chase to win my big money fantasy league and didn't get it, but I'm sure that other people have taken notice as well. Jake Browning looks nothing like the player that we saw in 2023, and I don't know if that's offensive. I mean, I think a lot of this.
Don't you think part of that is that they have a book on him?
Part of it's that they have a book. I think part of it that not a lot of people are talking about is that when Joe Burrow is playing, Joe Burrow is the offensive coordinator. You know what I mean? Right. Joe Burrow is Peyton Manning in that regard. I'm not comparing him to Peyton Manning, but Joe Burrow is controlling a lot of what he sees. He's controlling the input into what's going into
Joe Burrow's an incredibly advanced quarterback who plays quarterback in the way that people played quarterback 25 years ago, which is increasingly rare.
So when you remove that from the plug and then you say, okay, Zach Taylor and Bengals offensive staff now make it work, it looks a little different. And I think that Browning was probably able to catch lightning in a pan. It was a decent stretch. I think it was 7 games.
It was 7 games. I think they were 4-3. Let me look.
4-3 and an above 70% completion rate. But now it looks nothing like that.
So can I make the case for trading for Kirk Cousins?
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes the most sense, doesn't it?
I mean, I think for one thing, like what you're talking about, knowledge of the offense, the ability to control things. If you want to replace that, where Kirk Cousins' formative years as a starter, who his coordinator was, right? It was Sean McVay, who is one of Zach Taylor's mentors. Right. So I think having, having somebody who has at least some background in your offense would help. Having somebody who's used to having a lot of control and runs the offense by the book, because that's always been Kirk's rep has been he will that's why Kyle Shanahan loves him. It's like the coach has the joystick, you know what I mean? And he will run your offense the way you want your offense run. So he's got that piece of it. Here's the other thing. All right. I came up covering as a Patriots beat writer in 05, 06, when I first started covering the league. it was in the height of the Brady Manning rivalry. And I remember it felt like those two would go at it forever, right?
Yeah.
And these franchises would be gold standards forever. And then we saw the Colts get lucky and Manning gets hurt in the right year and they wind up with luck and it extends a little bit. And then we saw what it looked like post Andrew Luck, right? And we've seen now what it looks like for the Patriots post Tom Brady and how hard it's been for them to drag themselves up off the mat and what a mess they've been 4-13 2 years in a row. And it's really convinced me that when you have a quarterback like that, and I think there are 4 of them in the NFL right now, right? I think it's Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, and Jackson. Every chance that you have to enter the tournament with one of those guys at quarterback is gold and needs to be respected and needs to be invested in. And so if I have an opportunity to enter the tournament with Joe Burrow as my starting quarterback, I am treating that like gold. And how do you treat that like gold? You give yourself the best chance to get in while he's not in the lineup. And to me, that makes the investment in a guy like Kirk Cousins would make it 100% worth it. And so if I'm the Bengals, I'm making that phone call to the Falcons and I'm saying, what can we do to make this happen? And I know it might seem like a lot, like the money you would pay. And I don't know. I think what's his base salary this year? It's like 20. Let me pull it up. Cause I had this like committed to memory in the offseason.
Every other week it's like, hey, is this team going to trade for Kirk Cousins? Is this going to,
maybe I'm blocking it out. Cause I was like a kick pup. All right. So his base salary is 27.5. So at this point, well, let's say they trade for him in 2 weeks. Okay. So that would be 6 weeks in. So you're talking about like now, and hang on 1 second here. So we would be talking at that point about, and I'm dividing 27.5 by 18 right here live, which is great podcasting, as you know. So
actually, that is great podcasting because I can't divide. So
you'd be talking about an $18 million investment. Okay. An $18 million investment. And maybe in this case, you get whatever, 6 or 7 starts out of him. It's worth it. It's worth it because you have a quarterback like that. Those are very hard to come by. And you're making an $18 million investment in what could be a run at the Super Bowl when the rest of the AFC, quite frankly, looks relatively vulnerable, right? The Broncos haven't quite lived up to expectations. Now I think they look better on Monday. The Chargers now are down both their starting tackles. I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine, but they've looked vulnerable early on. The Bills, I think, are the best team in the conference, but they scuffled a little bit. The Ravens obviously have looked vulnerable. Like, if I'm the Bengals, I look at this and I say, how do we get to December 14th?
Yes.
And that game against the Ravens at 7-6.
Yeah.
Can we get there? And I'm doing everything I can to get there. Because if I can get there at 7-6, that will mean that I've developed different parts of my team. I've become more well-rounded. And now I'm inserting Joe Burrow back into the lineup. And then what? Now you have a chance to get hot at the end of December. I don't know. I think like if you're at the point now where you think Jake Browning is not going to be good enough and it's going to land you at 3-6 when he comes back, or at, that's bad math at, whatever, 3 and it'd be 3-10 or 4-9 and you're out of it altogether. Like if you think Jake Browning is going to do that to you, then you owe it to yourself to try and find a better answer at the position, because again, the opportunity to have a quarterback like that going into January should be treated like gold.
You're already all in, right? I mean,
yeah.
You did the deal, and I hate to, and I'm sure that Mike Brown is rolling his eyes when he listens to this, because I know Mike Brown is a huge MMQB pod listener.
Yep, no question.
Big time, and everybody is, all the insiders.
Yep.
But I get it. Right. It's like I paid T. Higgins. I paid Jamar Chase. I paid Trey Hendrickson. We got the deal done with Shamar Stewart. Leave me alone. And while I never side with an owner, I do get the idea that he probably feels like he has done everything he can at this point. My hope is that what you don't do is Russell Wilson, right? Because Russell Wilson is theoretically the other guy in this conversation, right? Russell Wilson, you only owe him $1.5 million for the end of the year. That is a more financially feasible option, but we've seen already Jake Browning just chuck it to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And I think that's at best kind of what you're going to get. I don't think that Russell Wilson is a market improvement over Jake Browning in that offense specifically right now. I don't know if that makes sense.
I agree.
But I do think that Kirk Cousins, I think we're fading him, man. I really do. Like
You're gonna get a motivated Kirk Cousins, right?
And it's not going to look like it drives me so crazy because it's not going to look like it did last year in Atlanta because Kirk wasn't healthy and that offense was not adjusted to suit where he was at in his recovery. It just wasn't. It was like, hey, you're going to have to do all this stuff in the backfield, and Kirk Cousins is on 1.5 Achilles. And so that it looked a lot
He couldn't
worse
drive the ball last year
than what it was.
He couldn't drive the ball last year.
And he still had like a 5 touchdown game or whatever it was, you know?
I mean, I just think again, I think you get a motivated version of Kirk Cousins. I think you get, a guy who's going to be good for the room, so to speak, and good for Joe Burrow then to have that resource at the end of the year would be.
I was thinking that too. I think that's super valuable.
You know what I mean? To have him as that resource when he gets back would be valuable. It also if you feel like you're close with him, it could give you the ability to sit Joe for an extra week if Kirk is playing well. You know what I mean? It's valuable. It's just again, like you said, you're all in. You did the deal with Trey Hendrickson. You've invested in the receivers. You've invested in the offensive line, even though it hasn't played out the way you would have liked it to. There's just so many things to me that I look at with the Bengals where I'm like, I think Kirk could probably stabilize and fix this a little bit and put them in a position where they're competing for the next 2 months. And, then when Joe gets close, you have a little bit more flexibility to be careful with him. And when Joe gets back, you have a resource in the room for him that's really good. And you'd hope at least that you have, a group that's developed again, because if you're going to win without him, you're going to have to develop different strengths. Maybe it's Chase Brown in the run game. Maybe it's Al Golden and what he's doing defensively to make it work in a little bit of a different environment. I just think that there is a path here to competing and to competing at the highest level. And by the way, all those questions about is Joe pissed off about the fact that this or that isn't working around him? Joe's deeply invested in that franchise and deeply invested in being part of it, being the change agent for that franchise. I've talked to him about this before, and I think, he would really appreciate, and there'd be good value for you on a personal level with Joe in doing something like this to preserve a year of his career and give value to a year of his career that otherwise would be lost.
And for people clamoring that, backup quarterbacks, it is what it is. It's a sunk cost. I ran into this tidbit, and there's no other place to put it but here. So when I was reporting out the legal sign stealing thing last week, someone said that backup quarterbacks are a big part of this, that they help in the prep and they notice a lot of this stuff because that's part of their job, right? Is to see what other teams are doing. And Kirk is one of those heady players. And I didn't confirm this with Kirk specifically, but someone said hey, do you know why Gardner Minshew always gets signed really quickly and always goes to teams? And it was why? And it's because he was an old air raid guy. So he's used to getting to the line, looking over at the defensive backs and taking a screenshot of their signals mentally and processing them. And he knows what the defense is doing. He knows what's coming. And so I think that Kirk, there's tremendously valuable things that we just we can't even fathom, is my point, with a backup quarterback, right? And so that's why I think you put Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow together and you give Joe essentially a third offensive coordinator. Holy shit. You really got something.
By the way, you sorry for being distracted there. The Chiron on First Take right now is, will Shador Sanders see the field this season with in little little letters underneath, Browns benching Joe Flacco to start Dillon Gabriel. I just sent it to you.
We're just a parody of ourselves at this point, you know?
I mean, that was great. I had to tweet that out too. I said it took 30 seconds. Like, it was
like,
just,
sports media is dying. Why? Look at
that. Will Shador Sanders see this? I do think we'll probably wind up seeing him based on the juncture of this happening, though. You know what I mean? Like, I do think because it happened so early, if things go wrong, then eventually it's going to be like, well, let's just throw him in and see what happens.
I'm going to say one thing about this, and then
based on how that
Lamar
Rams
Jackson
preseason game goes, I would think that it might go really, really poorly.
Well, I mean, I don't know how it's going to go, but I'll just say this, and then we'll get to Lamar Jackson because I think that's more important.
Yep.
It's a lose-lose proposition for the Browns.
Yeah.
Just to play him specifically, because you remember the fervor after that Panthers game of, oh my God, this guy should be our week 1 starter after he carved up one of the worst defenses in the NFL, historically one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And a defense that wasn't even running its scheme at that point, because it was a preseason. So if Shador comes out and catches lightning in a pan and has I'm saying lightning in a pan a lot this episode, by the way. Is that
lightning in a bottle?
It's lightning in a bottle. Flash in a pan, lightning in a bottle. Bad job by me. I think that's all the antihistamines.
Well, the NFL has had its issues with conflating analogies in the past, so I think we need to be careful.
It's true. I'm like the bartender from Boondock Saints.
Yeah.
So if he somehow has like a Manziel game, a good Manziel game,
yep,
and everyone is like, holy shit, then your back is against the wall for next year, right? Because it's like, oh, this guy's so good, it's so good, it's so good. You can build around him, you can build around him, you can build around him. We want Shador. And at that point, it becomes a runaway boulder that's impossible to stop.
Which is like the Tebow thing, why like what the Broncos
exactly.
what the Broncos would tell you is it took like someone like Peyton Manning to detach from
exactly
Tebow. When Tebow wasn't like playing great football and they were winning, and everybody was like, oh, it's a miracle. Like Tim Tebow was, you know, the presence of Tim Tebow was so great that Marion Barber ran out of bounds. You know what I mean? Like, it was like all that weird stuff was happening. Was it a fumble or did he run out of bounds? I can't remember now.
Oh, I can't remember. That was too long ago.
Yeah, it was like, but it was like a weird thing where the Bears had the game won. This was after Marion Barber left the Cowboys for the Bears. God rest his soul. And Barber, I believe, like inexplicably ran out of bounds, and then that allowed the Broncos to get the ball back and win the game. So, I mean, it's good, but it will be one of those situations where like Shador Sanders could go 10 of 30, and they win the game, and he makes one throw, and it's like, see, kid's just a winner.
I will say this. I interviewed Tim Tebow, and I know you have too. And oddly, coming away from that conversation, someone said, like, because back then he was on the Jets, and when you did a one-on-one with Tebow, they didn't take him into another room. You had to do it at his locker. And so everyone's watching you interview Tim Tebow. And I was like 22, I think, at that point, and just kind of in over my head. But I talked to Tebow, and then you go back into the scrum with the other reporters, and someone looks at me and they're like, you're blushing. Like you are beet red. Like you just met your crush for the first time. And we're making fun of me, right? But he did have that magnetism.
Oh, you can see it with him. 100%. Yeah.
And Shador, I think, is not different. Like, remember at the beginning of the year with the training camp stuff, like at the podium, he has a lot of emotional intelligence, and I think he can be electric and draw people in when need be. And I think that's just like with Kevin Stefanski, you have to know what you're going to get on game day, because if he plays well, it's over. You have to play him. And that's a situation that you don't want to be in, because I just don't think the consistency's there. I don't. And now I'm going to get followed around by his brother for the documentary and get yelled at.
It's just everything you're inviting that comes with it.
It's very Brownsy.
Yeah. And I think it's, for me, it's like, I'm going, if I'm the Browns, And I think they're doing this. I'm at all the I've got boots on the ground at all the big college quarterback games
Oh, for
for the
sure.
rest of the fall, which I'm sure they're doing. I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure they're doing that. And like I'm doing everything I can and turning over every rock to make sure that I know everything possible about all of them. Because again, like I think the chances are that the Browns quarterback for 2026 is not on the roster right now.
Um, yeah. I mean, it's not. Their quarterback is not there. They're going to have to figure something out. They're going to have to move forward. And we're going to have to move forward because we got to talk about Lamar Jackson. This is a possible 2 to 3 week hamstring injury. Speaking of Shedeur Sanders, he probably should have gone to the Ravens instead of avoiding them because he might be playing right now in a really good offense with Derrick Henry. But this is to me the game changing, depending on how long this lasts and how long it lingers.
Yeah.
This is in you could say it's only 2 weeks. It's only 2 weeks. The Ravens are 1-3.
Yeah.
And while on one side of my mouth I'm saying that the Browns could get back to 5-5, I think that's a different situation than saying that the Ravens can survive as a top
because we're
AFC threat without Lamar Jackson.
We're talking about teams like there's a difference between talking about can a team like find its way into the in the hunt graphic in December versus like with the Ravens, we're talking about can this is that game going to be played in Baltimore or Buffalo? Is that game going to be played in Baltimore or Kansas City? Like that's the sort of thing that we're talking about with the Ravens. And those things, as they, once again last year proved, those things can determine who winds up in the Super Bowl. Last year, the Bills won a 2-point game over the Ravens at home, and then went to Kansas City and lost at the very end of that game to the Chiefs. Now, I'm not saying if the AFC Championship game was played in Buffalo or that divisional round game was played in Baltimore, the result would have been different, but it might have been, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, we're talking about like teams that are that have been at the very top of the conference that are playing in high leverage games where those games are generally won on the margins and have been traditionally very, very close. And so they play the Texans this week. Have the Texans found their mojo? I don't know, but maybe the Texans have found their mojo, and the Texans are in the same sort of spot, same sort of desperate spot Baltimore's in, right? And then you get the Rams after that. Right. And the Rams are going to be coming off of, I think, 10 days rest, right? Because they play on Thursday. So, like, the next 2 weeks for the Ravens, you're right. Like, this is a critical point for the Ravens.
I mean,
Cooper, and I think that's as talented a team, by the way, as any in football. Like, I think that their roster is dynamite, despite what it's looked like early on. And they've got injury issues now that they're working through. But I mean, they're sort of at that no excuses point where they got to buck up because you lose enough of these games. And now all of a sudden, maybe even if you get in, you're the 6 or 7 seed and you got to win 3 games in the road to make it to the Super Bowl.
Cooper Rush against, let's just take a look at this. Okay, the Rams are the 4th highest QB pressure rate team in the NFL, and the Texans are 14th, but you have to take into account that this team has not been playing with a lead for an awful long portion of this season, right? And when they did get a lead, they tortured the daylights out of poor Cam Ward. I mean, that guy barely made it out of that game. And so I don't know. I mean, the Ravens at 1-5, what does that look like? Then
you're starting to ask big picture questions, which, I don't think we need to discuss that yet, but
we're not there. But
we're not there. But like, I think I think that this is a critical 2 games for the Ravens. And if they're going into those 2 games with Cooper Rush again, against, I think, a team that's really talented in the Texans that still has a really high ceiling, right? Like I'm not saying they're there, but I'm not overreacting to the Titans game. I would have told you this when they were 0-3. I still think they have a high ceiling. And then after that, you're playing a Rams team that I think could be in the Super Bowl. It's just, there's there's a little bit of an incline in front of the Ravens now, whether or not they can scale it. You get to the other side of it then, and I'm just looking at it now. Then you've got your bye, and then you got the Bears and Dolphins coming out of your bye. If you're 3-3, or even 2-4, like the opportunity in front of you is much different than if you're 1-5.
Let's look at the games this weekend, Albert. Just very quickly, we have 49ers Rams on TNF, which is one of my favorite perpetual matchups. And I think it looks a little bit different now given the state of the Niners.
Yep.
I'm curious if they can find a way to muddy this up enough against McVay to get it to a point where the 49ers defense can kind of take over and cause a critical turnover or something like that. But the Rams look as good to me as any team in football right now. And
I thought that was an impressive one over the Colts. Like
really impressive. Yeah.
I went back and watched it again, and the Colts like opened the door with, a couple of the AD Mitchell plays and obviously the 10 men on the field on the long 2-2 Atwell touchdown. But I mean, the Rams really, I think their ability to kind of perform in some of the critical spots there, and just, what I really like about the way the Rams played, it was a lot of their best players were making the plays when it really mattered most. Like that fourth down, Puka Nacua is the one who's getting the ball and getting into the end zone, to tie the game there. And, Stafford quickly recognizes the guy falling down on the 10 men play and quickly gets the ball to Atwell. And it's not the craziest quarterback play in the world, but it's quick recognition. And then Jared Verse, with the strip sack on a critical play, as the Colts are trying to come back. Like I just think over and over again, you're seeing their best players make these plays, and that's a good sign for where our team is at. And, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, so maybe I'm a little biased here and calling them a Super Bowl team, but it's even like the way I talked to Jared Verse after that game, and it's even the way he was talking after the game. He was like, all due respect to the Eagles, we gave them that game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I kind of like the confidence to say something like that, knowing they're probably going to see them again. I just think the Rams are in a really good place.
Speaking of which, I think you tweeted it, and I have to close the book on the Saleh Liam Cohen fight. But Kyle Shanahan was asked if
I have a little more detail on that.
Oh, okay, go. Let me hear it.
So I think apparently, according to an onlooker, I think when Liam Cohen first passed Robert Saleh, I think Saleh actually made an attempt to go up and apologize. And Liam then said, "Nah, I got nothing to say to you, bro." Okay. And then walked the 10, 15 yards and then turned around and yelled, "Keep my name out of your mouth." So he said he didn't have anything to say to him when they were face to face. And then he had something. It's just, what a weird situation.
That's disappointing.
The thing that sucks, Liam's done a really, really good job, and they're 3-1, and that's what we should be talking about. Is they've got
and we do. I mean, I was as critical as anybody of this, the greenness of the staff, and Campanale has done nothing but put himself in the conversation for assistant coach of the year. Flat out.
And once people get a load of his personality, I bet we're going to be talking about head coach with him.
I think so too. Yeah. I absolutely think so. But Kyle was asked if any coach could beat up Robert Saleh, and
that was great.
And his response was,
you could tell how much Kyle was so happy to get that question. Like the shit eating grin on his face when he got asked that question was fantastic.
I'm like interpreting it now in real time, and Kyle's tough to make smile too. Like, I had a question for him that I had to ask.
He was so happy to get that question. You could tell.
Oh, I know. Great. I had a question that I had to ask him at the Super Bowl, and I tried to phrase it in a way that wasn't like, people make fun of you for this, and I didn't do a good job. And immediately you just see like the RBF, and you're just like, I'm fucked. I'm not.
He's more self-aware than people give him credit for too.
Oh, I do. I think so too.
Yeah, he's a really sharp guy that way, and I thought his answer was great. And I think he said like the Dan Campbell thing. Like, so I did I don't know if you saw it, but I did tweet out my if there was a 32-man fight bracket among the head coaches, who my final four would be. I think our buddy Tyler Dunn actually picked up on it too. I'm not sure what he tweeted, but he reacted to it. So my final four, if I was filling out my bracket here, and maybe we will do this at some point because it's always a good exercise. My final four: Dan Campbell, Detroit; Aaron Glenn, Jets; D'Amico Ryans, Houston; Mike Vrabel, New England.
Okay.
Now, I feel like that's uncreative and a little too easy because it's 4 former players, but I just have a hard time taking any one of those 4 off the list.
Okay.
And Todd Bowles is a contender. He's another ex-player. I think you have a few guys like I think Mike McDonald is an interesting one. I think we've
quiet
talked
storm,
about that, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of a quiet storm. Yeah.
Like Sean McDermott and Dan.
Okay. All right. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to do mine. I don't want you to start stealing my answers. Okay.
They have the wrestling background. Go ahead.
I have very different final four than you. Yeah.
Okay.
Extremely different.
Okay. Let's
go.
So
here's mine. Okay. It's Sean McDermott because I think that wrestlers are so annoying in the best possible way. Like,
right.
If you've ever gotten into a fight with a wrestler, all of a sudden you were just like in a pretzel and you don't know what happened.
On the most tenacious guy, like my high school team was this kid, Tim Murphy, who when he was like in like 5th or 6th grade, like he showed up to like Pop Warner practice. He's a year younger than me. So he was playing with my brother. My brother was like, was playing a year up. And like, he shows up like for practice with like taped glasses and didn't look like anything, skinny as hell.
Yeah.
Like they start hitting, he's murdering
people. Yeah.
And so he winds up being a high school wrestler, like a champion. I think he wound up like deep in the state bracket and in wrestling and all that. And, but he was a safety for us. And the craziest dude, like he would be dropping weight at the end of our football season for wrestling. So he's still playing safety for us at a really high level. Meanwhile, his fucking lips are turning blue.
Yeah.
Because he's been losing weight because he's cutting weight for wrestling. And we actually used him in spots against certain teams as a nose guard because he was able to, because he could get low to the ground and he could get in the backfield so fast. So he was like our monster back, which is our strong safety, right? And then we would use him on the nose. I'm with you. Wrestlers like Tim Murphy's my example. I'm sure everyone has one.
Yes.
And he wasn't the only one, but he's the one that I think of when I think of that. Like wrestlers have a special little something in a fight situation that you cannot discount. And I think Dan Quinn, by the way, has wrestling background too, which a lot of people have not. I don't know that that's really uncovered as much. But
Morristown High School, right around the corner from me, New Jersey.
So there you go. So let's hear your final four then.
All right. So yours, just for record, was Dan Campbell. Aaron Glenn,
D'Amico Ryans,
Mike Vrabel. Okay. I'm going with, like I said, Sean McDermott, Dan Campbell, because I have to. I just think that leaving Dan off.
I'm writing this down, by the way. Okay.
Leaving Dan off this list is ignorant of the
and kind of like a hard-o move. Like I know better than everybody else, right?
Well, I'm 0-1 in career fights. You can still see if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the little Owen Wilson section of my nose up here that will forever remain that way. So I'm not claiming to be an expert in the art of hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
But Dan Campbell, to me, I've sat next to him. I've stood up and shook his hand, and even with a titanium knee,
he's a massive human being.
Yeah. With a titanium knee, he scares the living bejesus out of me. So I have McDermott, I have Dan Campbell. Mm-hmm. And then my last two are interesting. Okay. The third one is Jim Harbaugh.
Okay. So like this is the fight dirty dynamic, right?
Yeah. So this is how I round it out. Jim Harbaugh, like that's the guy that you punch in the face and nothing happens. He just continues to look at you.
My pen out. I'm taking notes here because this is very important to me.
We're going to clip this, by the way. So Jim, right? You punch that guy in the face, and it's like and
he smiles at you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And maybe he's hurting on the inside, but there is a level of mental warfare.
Psychological warfare.
Yes.
100%. Yes.
That you're not prepared for. And
like
even
he is a 5-star general in the army of psychological warfare.
yes. And even at the ripe young age of 61, I think that he's still got it. Okay. So I have Campbell. Okay. I have McDermott. I have Jim Harbaugh. And then my last one is, can you kind of tell where I'm going with this or no?
You have a smirk on your face.
Who is the one coach in the NFL who would not ever quit on a fight ever? Like
Sirianni.
Yes, Nick Sirianni. Thank you.
Nailed it.
Not only would he come with a lead pipe in his sock and would just knock you upside the head of it. Yeah, I mean, maybe Big Dom calls in some reinforcements, but Sirianni to me, and you talk about the wrestler growing up, kids like Nick growing up that would rather have all of their teeth removed than to lose a fight. Or to lose a football game.
The fighter, and I've been in a lot of schoolyard fights. I probably have a losing record. I was a troubled young man at one point. I would say Sirianni is the if I'm going down, you're coming with me fighter.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if I'm going down, you are coming with me.
Yes.
And if I'm hurting, you're going to be hurting. He's that guy.
So, right, because there's a lot of former players in the NFL. And so I think a lot of people are inclined, like you did, to go D'Amico, to go Vrabel. But I think that there are also, and I say this in the nicest possible way and in the most complimentary way, but there's a psychopathy to it too, right? And that's how you win fights.
Okay, so
you have to be a crazy person.
Part of it for me too, though, with the 4 I picked. So
you're a little scratch. I'm not gonna lie.
Huh? Yeah,
you were a little scratch.
I would say, like part of it for me though isn't just that they're former players. It's like kind of the edge that they have and where they're from.
Notoriously tough dudes. Yes.
Right. And like Aaron Glenn, when he was a player, was the toughest, like the scrappiest, toughest corner in football. Right. So he's kind of got like the short guy thing going. Right. Like, so I have that with him. D'Amico is the smile in your face and then destroy you guy. Right. Like the friendliest guy. He's going to put his helmet in your chest and then he's going to like reach down and pick you up like it was nothing to do that. And then with Vrabel and Campbell, I think it's the background of the two. So Dan Campbell is like Texas tough, which I think is a different thing. And then because Vrabel went to the same school that I did, my guess is that Mike Vrabel got into a few bar fights that got covered up. So I think there's probably an experience factor with Vrabel.
Look into it. It's like a tattoo scandal again.
Because I may or may not have seen football players at my school get into bar fights that never saw the light of day. So
that didn't happen at Syracuse. We properly identified and punished people.
I was
the rules.
I was in school during the John Cooper era, which was I loved Coop did a good job there in a lot of different ways, but we had some colorful characters on the team. Like I had to do some reporting on this guy Marco Cooper, who the day after the spring game was found passed out in his pickup truck with like a handful of guns, like hollow point bullets, a bag of ecstasy,
point bullets.
Yeah. So you can look up, if you Google Albert Breer, Marco Cooper, you will find a story from the school paper on that. And then there was this other guy when I was a freshman, sophomore, named Tim Cheatwood. And so they have a big banquet at Ohio State. And this is like Vrabel era at Ohio State. And so Tim Cheatwood was from East Cleveland, which is like where Bone Thugs are from. And so they have a big banquet. They had a big banquet, whatever, like, their annual thing, kickoff dinner, and everybody's wearing, suits and ties and the women there are wearing dinner dresses, all of that. And Tim Cheatwood shows up wearing a t-shirt that says Cleveland, home of the baddest motherfuckers on earth. And then when they go around and introduce themselves and say a little something about themselves, Tim Cheatwood stands up and says, "I'm Tim Cheatwood from Cleveland, home of the baddest motherfuckers on earth." So that's the environment Mike Vrabel came up in. Anyway,
I take mine. So McDermott from Omaha, farm tough, flatlands of America tough, and then you got Harbaugh from Toledo, please, Ohio tough, like you just mentioned. Jamestown, New York tough. I don't know, but like for Nick Sirianni,
I think it matters though. Like,
sure,
like I think Dan Campbell comes from a part of the country where guys know how to take care of themselves, you know?
Right. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, man. I imagine this. If we put them all in there in a Royal Rumble,
and Aaron Glenn's from Texas too, I believe.
He's from Texas, yes.
Yeah.
I just imagine you throw all these guys in here Royal Rumble style. I just have a really hard time imagining Nick Sirianni not winning.
I will say too,
Just
like Salah's not in the bracket, but he would be a consideration as well. Like,
of course.
Yeah. Speaking of where guys are from, like he's from Dearborn, and my family being from the Detroit area, I do know what being from Dearborn means. Like, probably a pretty tough guy.
Let's go on to something that's not going to get us a bunch of angry texts from coaches when this gets clipped for social
I think
media. No.
You know what I think I'm going to get from a bunch of coaches, like knowing the way they talk about this stuff. I'll probably get filled out brackets from them.
I hope so. That would be all right. If we listen, send us your brackets. I want to see your coach fight brackets. I'm just going to breeze through this, Albert, and I'm going to do a quick one-liner, and then I want kind of your thoughts on just a couple of these here. So we're looking down at the Sunday slate. We have a 1:00 game between the Giants and Saints. Let's see if Jackson Dart can get 2 in a row here. The Giants are 2-3, and while we're not thinking playoffs, we are thinking a lot differently about this franchise. Broncos and Eagles. This is a potential get-right game for Denver after the blowout of the Bengals. And this is the Eagles, to me, facing a situation where it's like, how long before we have to really unfold the arsenal here and really get into an offense that's going to sustain us throughout the rest of the season? Texans, Ravens, like we talked about, really important game. Commanders, Chargers. How does Jaden Daniels look after he comes back? And Patriots, Bills, Albert, this is Mike Vrabel's first Bills game, and the Bills have just been on fumes, pummeling bad teams. Can Mike Vrabel get this within a touchdown? That's my thought in this.
Right. Like, is this a competitive game in the fourth quarter? Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the bar. I don't think you're expecting him to go in there and win, but I think if this is a good competitive game, then that becomes a launching point for the Patriots. You breeze by it, but I think the Broncos have a great opportunity here. This has been, I think, I think they would say an uneven start to the season for them. It looks like the defense started to come together against the Bengals on Monday night, and Bo Nix played really well. Like, I thought, like, the job Bo Nix did at the end of the first half of that game, a couple of like really just high level throws that he made there, including the touchdown to Cortland Sutton. This, like, I think is an opportunity for the Broncos to really stamp themselves, to be able to go into Philadelphia and win. I think it gives them an opportunity. Like, this would be a real launching point for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think, listen, this is I don't think, again, this is not one of those weeks that you circle on the calendar and you're like, God, I need to be in my chair for Chiefs Jaguars. Even though that's going to be a good game too. And I'm not discounting that. I think Jacksonville could play up and really surprise some people. I'm not counting them out of this one, but I think this is a week that has a massive impact. Like we said, are the Ravens going to go 1-4? That's going to change things. Can the Broncos get to 3-2 and the Chargers lose to the Commanders and they're 3-2, right? And so there's a lot of that going on that I think impacts the remainder of the season, which is why it's worth watching. It's always worth watching. All right. Well, let's sit back, Albert, and let's see what the people think of our coach fighting brackets here.
Yep. Feel free to send them in. We will, we will take all of them under consideration. And here's hoping you feel better, Connor. I know it's a heroic effort by you today.
flawless performance by me and by Advil Cold and Sinus, and I'm gonna go load up on some of that and take a long nap. So that's my plan for today. Just kidding. I'm gonna write 10 more things about the NFL. See you Monday.